Collaboration and communication are catchphrases that I often use when presenting my Evolution of Learning talk to staff at schools who are needing to bridge the digital divide. Being able to collaborate enables teachers, learners and parents to connect more efficiently, share resources and save both time and money. I have with me in the studio Karen Walstra from Google for Education to share some of the really useful collaboration tools Google has to offer for free, making the leap for schools into technology accessible to all. Hi Karen, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi Nikki.
So we know that Google is really useful for email via Gmail, for using calendars, but what about Google Drive and how it helps teachers in the classroom?
So Google Drive is a really wonderful space which you use for storage, and you can store any kinds of documents there.
So it's kind of a filing system.
It is. But you can also store photos and videos and things like that if that's what you want to do. But on top of that, within Drive, you can actually share folders and you can share documents within that space. So this is the
collaboration that we're talking about.
Exactly.
So a group of maths teachers can all work on the same curriculum document or lesson plan at the same time.
That's it.
Because the document is live, sitting in the cloud.
It is. And so within your folders, when you share that folder, you can only the people who have rights to that folder can actually see it.
Okay, so there's a degree of privacy,
yes.
and the documents can't get out to all and sundry.
No.
Okay.
And then when you're sharing a document, what you're doing is you're giving people different viewing rights. So they could just view it, they could edit it, which means they could make changes and comments, or they could just comment on the document. So if you're sharing with children, you might want to sometimes share something which you can only view, but other times you might actually want them to all work within assignment together, and you might want to do that with colleagues. So if you're doing a school policy, it's a really useful tool where you're all then working on the most current draft. And if by some chance you want to go back, you use revision history for that.
Okay.
So the Google documents are really, really good.
And I believe that you can work online and offline as well. So say you have, you lose your link to the internet, or the electricity goes down. You can work back 50 documents?
It's about that,
About
yes.
that, and some schools have worked for up to a week without access. And once you go back online, everything syncs.
It does.
Okay.
So all the documents you've got, and you'd be able to create new documents, and you can work offline. So you would activate your offline feature when you are online, and then you would be able to use the offline feature really, really effectively.
Okay. And then there was another really smart app that you spoke to me about, which was Forms. So say, for example, a teacher wants to set a spelling test or a maths test. What does Forms then enable you to do so quickly, saving teachers time?
So Forms for me was the most amazing tool that I came across. Or when I started working with Google. So what Forms does is anything you want to ask a question about, you can create a question. So like you said, a maths test or a spelling test, or maybe you want to communicate with parents. But what it does is by default, when you've set up your little set of instructions, it makes a spreadsheet. So it makes a Google Sheets for you to work on, which then gets populated every time somebody submits the form. Now imagine that. I think teachers' bane of their lives are parent reply slips.
Absolutely. So things like medical forms that have to come in every year for children. What about an RSVP to an event?
Exactly.
And suddenly all those RSVPs are collated for you, and it's just so simple.
Imagine if you're doing a school play where parents are rushing to buy tickets,
yes.
and you want to know who came in first. Because the time is already set there by default, you know exactly who replied quicker than other people, so you can be truly fair in handing out the tickets.
I'm thinking of things like school outings.
Yes.
Teachers send out slips, who's going to the zoo?
Yes.
And that takes time, and it's usually done very manually. But then we get to things like the app for the connected classroom. And this is really exciting. It really is something that can bring learning alive. Whether you are a rural school or whether you're a high-end private school, how does this connected classroom work, and what can it do?
So a connected classroom itself is a feature which Google offers schools and offers companies that they can present information. So it's where you would register, and you would then broadcast to say that we are inviting schools to attend a function. So for example, last year with Google for Doodle, the South African Google marketing team put together 3 connected classrooms across the country, and then we invited whichever schools wanted to participate in the discussion, which means now it's not just one individual, but it's actually a whole class who's communicating with a person at a different venue, whether it's at a museum such as the Hector Peterson Museum, or a tour down Vilakazi Street, or perhaps it's an aquarium,
Sure.
or perhaps it's even
Wow.
a factory. So the children can be learning without traveling to a space.
So they can discover how the world works in real time, because these are tours that are happening in real time. I'm thinking, for example, how is paper made? You know, to be taken through a paper mill. I actually have done the real tour myself, but most children will never get that opportunity, and it's a big process. So you could have 5, 10, 15 schools going through that tour of a paper mill all at the same time. The people who are taking the tour are interacting with the kids. The kids can ask questions. They get seen on the screen as well. And there's this real feeling of collaboration, and that we're all in this together.
And the other advantage is it's recorded at the same time. So children who haven't attended or children from other schools could always watch at a later date and still learn from that experience.
And it does help those underprivileged schools where money is tight, where they can't take their kids out. Or say, for example, you wanted to go to the Guggenheim Museum for art in the States and you're sitting in South Africa. The kids can actually get to feel how small the world really is. And then also that teacher sharing and class sharing, where you could have a classroom in Alaska and a classroom in South Africa, and the kids are collaborating on a project together.
So what you're speaking about now is not actually Connected Classroom, but that's the app called Hangouts.
Hangout, yes.
So Hangouts is a videoing or texting app, but mainly videoing, where you can actually communicate with each other. And in your normal Hangouts, you can have up to 15 people within a Hangout.
It's absolutely awesome.
It is. So, and if it's a classroom, perhaps the teacher just turns her camera so that the whole classroom is active instead of just one person. But imagine saving on teachers' time to meetings, where you're driving from one school to another to an afternoon meeting. Instead of doing that, you could all be in your different Hangouts and within that same space.
And then I'm thinking of parent-teacher conferences at the end of every term. One parent is sitting overseas on a business trip, or sitting in, say, the middle of Sandton, and it's going to take 2 hours to get to the school because of traffic. That parent could actually still be part of the parent-teacher conference by using Hangout. They're actually sitting on a screen. One parent's in the classroom with the teacher, and you can be part and parcel of the conversation.
And you mentioned Calendar earlier, but Calendar by default has a Hangout in it. So when you invite people who have got a Gmail account into that Calendar meeting, they would have the Hangout in that space. So if you're setting a meeting for parents, or for a staff meeting or a cross-district meeting, everybody who is in that invitation would have access to that link, and you would all then be put into that same virtual room. As easy as that. No additional logins. It's just part of your login, and there you are, and off you go. It's such a time-saving device.
Karen, how can teachers learn more about Google for Education? I believe you've got an event coming up in February.
So in February, we're going to be hosting the Google for Education Innovation Tour. And this year it's going to be in Durban and in Johannesburg and in Bloemfontein. And what we're going to be doing is have a whole day of workshops and interactive sessions where anybody who's interested in education can come along. Teachers, lecturers. It is free, and we would love to invite people. We are capping it at 200, but everybody's welcome.
It sounds absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. And that brings us to the end of this week's show. And thank you, Karen, for enlightening us about how we can improve collaboration and communication in education. For more information about the Google Innovation in Education Tour and web links to the topics we've discussed today, do visit NikkiBush.com. Click on the Nikki Bush tab. On that note, I dare you to go and change the world, one parent, one teacher, one leader at a time.